Will your listeners understand the terminology of moral injury?
It would probably be good if you let us know what
Okay.
the definition is.
I just one of the things that I have been doing more recently is trying to connect more and provide more education for women veterans about moral injury. Um, that's something that I think I'm somewhat uniquely um, positioned to do, uh, and um, And I recently co-led a veteran women's retreat where I presented some very basic education on military moral injury. And this was to a group of about 10 women veterans who were, I'm going to say, probably most of them in their 40s and 50s. Uh, and many of them had been linked with the VA and with VA services for years. Some of them had experienced well, all of them had experienced military sexual trauma, actually. And some of them had been in the VA with therapeutic support. Only two had ever heard the terminology of military moral injury, 2 out of the 10. And their immediate reaction to the basic education that I provided was that they were infuriated that nobody had ever told them about this before, including at the VA. And this is the Philadelphia VA, where
And
there's
that's,
a lot going on.
yeah, that's the good one.
And I've been kind of pursuing some of that, but that experience, um, because I've been focusing on this now for years and also in pockets of the population where many people know about this, um, I I I had tended to think that perhaps familiarity with the terminology was more well spread than it actually is. I'm really questioning that. So one of the things that I did was to provide them with a series of different definitions for military moral injury, but basically, let me just start by saying this. Military moral injury and moral injury itself now is applied to many different contexts. But for the sake of what we're doing today, let's focus on military moral injury, right? Military moral injury is the experience of intolerable moral pain. Intolerable moral pain. Now, moral pain is part of the experience of being a human being. All of us experience moral pain. In various degrees and in various situations. And moral pain in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. We experience moral pain because the world is not right, because the world is not healed,
Mm.
because there is terrible human suffering. And we also experience moral pain individually because we have the sense that we have not lived as we hoped we would have. We have made choices that we don't feel good about. We have hurt other people. We've hurt ourselves. Um, so, um, so moral pain is a, I would say, a ubiquitous experience of human beings. When does it become moral injury? Moral injury is connected to the kind of moral pain that is intolerable. What does that mean? Um, Peter Marin, who's a psychologist who wrote about a wonderful piece on moral pain, talked about different levels of moral pain. There's a kind of moral pain that has to do with experiencing bad conscience. That's that's the kind of pain that everybody experiences, right? Um, but then there is the kind of moral pain that comes with experience of the suffering of the world that feels really overwhelming. That's a much deeper level of moral pain. The kind of moral pain that moral injury, I think, is connected with is a third level deeper still that combines the first two and then takes it further. It is the experience of moral pain, of that overwhelming sense of things being wrong with me in the world, but there's another piece to it. I feel powerless to really do anything about it. I'm caught. I'm caught. I'm captured. I'm somehow rendered helpless or powerless to really do anything about it. Okay.
Mm.
So moral injury is that devastating, terrible, debilitating, um, life diminishing experience of moral pain. And people who have studied moral injury have identified two different pathways through which people experience this. One is the pathway that has to do with me as an agent of moral action. This is the pathway that has to do with my own decision making, my own choices, um, my own betrayal of my moral compass, my deepest moral compass. So it's something that is very much centered on me. But the second pathway has to do with external forces. And in that sense, moral injury can also be experienced as the betrayal from outside of my moral compass. This can be on the part of people who have some sort of authority over me, people who have influence over me, people who in some way were responsible for me, people who were there to in some way protect me or support me or to help enhance my life to its fullest. And they betrayed that. They betrayed that responsibility. They betrayed. And it's not only individuals, it's not only people, it can also be institutions,
Mhm.
it can be nation states,
Mhm.
um, it can be cultures. So, in that sense, the second type of pathway of moral injury is very broad and includes many different forces and actors.
Including the church.
Thank you. Absolutely. Including religious forces, religious understandings, religious actors. Absolutely. Absolutely. We could add political, we could add military, we could add educational, we
Mhm.
could add healthcare. We could add a whole host of different actors to that list. So is that enough? I mean, I could, of course, I can always say more, but this was some of the education that I delivered to these women veterans. Oh, there was one other thing that I said that they found particularly important for their experience, and that was this. I stand with other researchers who identify moral injury as not a pathology. It is not a pathology. It is not a psychological deformation. It's not a personality disorder. It is the result of specific kinds of experiences and our human lives within those experiences. And the women that I was meeting with found that incredibly important because they have found that their suffering has been so deeply pathologized by so many different um, resources that have attempted to assist them, and that has that has too often increased their sense of stigmatization. They've been stigmatized as a result.
Mhm.
So to hear that this is in fact moral injury, not only is it not a pathology, but that in fact moral injury may indicate an alive and deep conscience was really important for them to hear. And in that sense, moral injury is a really important indicator that something is deeply wrong. And it's not only wrong with me, it's wrong with a much, much deeper context.